why don't we kind of start off with you guys, kind of talking about your collective, the kind of work that you guys do, where you guys are based, and the work that you guys have here.
So hi everyone, I'm Shivangi. I am a writer and independent documentary filmmaker based in Kathmandu, Nepal, and I am an editor for the Pomelo. We are a team of young women from different parts of Nepal and India, but we mostly work around Eastern Himalayas. So I'm from Nepal and they both are from Darjeeling and Kalimpong. And basically we started out as an e-magazine, now we have a website. So we mostly work in text medium, but now we are also working in audio and visual media.
So hi everyone, my name is Namsel Shriha. So I'm based out of Darjeeling and just want to take a little bit about the project, if I can talk about
Sure.
what we are showcasing out here. So for the project is titled In Our Footsteps. So this is basically looking at how women migrated from Tibet to India, from Nepal to India. So we interviewed 8 women, elderly women above the age of 70-75. Again, because a lot of women don't have documents and they don't know their age. So it's like approximate age of 70 to 75. And for the showcase, we have photographs, we documented audios and videos. So yeah, so for the exhibition, we I think have just 4 women, but like of total in our website, we will have more information and also we'll have the longer interviews. We just have some snippets of the visuals, some snippets of the audios as well that we are actually trying to showcase and like archive stories of women based out of the Eastern Himalayas.
So hi everyone, my name is Lanjana, I'm from Kalimpong, and we were just talking earlier about like the importance of archiving stories, because there has to be somebody doing it, because if you don't do it, the stories might just get lost, right? So because we recently started on our archivals, oral archivals for that matter, and I think it's very important because we not only have a language, we also get to hear their voices, right? And I think it's more connective to the individual as just reading the text or an essay about their migration or their story whatsoever that is, right? So that is why we just started this and we hope to develop it further, take it further, right? We plan on having documentaries on it, even though we just have a small trial for it as of now. So we're looking forward to take the project, right? So, and I hope that we get to do a lot of more archivals this way, because I think at the end of the day, stories is all that matters, right? Because I also believe that in a way that we all live sort of similar lives, just differently, right? So, and then so the entire idea of having this, when you're 75 or 80 and you're just sitting in the porch and you just talk about how well you lived, right? So at the end of the day, as I said, stories is all that matter, whatever it is. So we hope on archiving it and just taking it further this way. So we're really thankful that we got this platform today, right? Because we could do this project that we had not done before, because as Shivangi said, we were more of, we should write more, right? So we're doing it for the first time. So I think it's great to have such a platform as of now.
I have a bunch of questions, but we'll come back to you guys. We'll just allow Rajiv to explain themselves and talk about their work.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. My name is Raj. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a transplant from London to Goa, where I've been for the past year and a half. I've been sort of building up a practice that intersects culinary arts with image making and words. And the project, which is being supported by Genderbender, is called Taste Buds. Similarly, it's sort of a way of archiving the experiences and lives of queer and trans folk and all of their sort of intersectionalities through sort of spontaneous prose and the use of sort of taste sensations. And I can sort of go into that a bit more. I'm just going to name that I'm neurodiverse. And so sort of a space like this is a little bit intimidating or kind of unnatural for me, but sometimes by just sort of naming it, it helps me to
Yeah.
sort of control the situation. So yeah, like hopefully I'll get through this.
Great.
Okay.
I know it is supposed to be informal, and we're gonna try and keep it as informal as possible. But it is feeling a bit formal. All eyes are all on us, but that's completely fine with the cameras. But my first comment or question, really, and it's for both of you guys, is in both of your collective practices, you guys focus on sort of building solidarities. Do you guys want to sort of delve a little deeper into that? How did that come about? What made you guys want to work with a group of individuals rather than individually? Because it's really sort of what is the bane of both of your practices. And to you guys, did you guys all know each other? Were you guys classmates? Did you study together? Did you work together? Just curious.
Yeah.
Go ahead, you guys can go ahead.
Well, I suppose what kind of comes to mind in response to that is, I think for me, again, being somebody who's neurodiverse, writing and the practice of free writing with other people gradually has felt like a very stimulating and accessible way of creating and communicating with other people sort of in community. And so that was an exciting sort of way of collaborating and generating sort of exciting prose and reflections through the pandemic, particularly when there was sort of a lot of isolation. So yeah, I think I really enjoy just in my life sort of bringing people together, sort of understanding voices contextually, sort of in comparison to one another, sort of seeking and understanding differences and similarities within that, and just enjoying the excitement of spontaneous kind of in the moment creativity. So that's kind of what my practice is based in.
So the Pomelo was actually started by me along with two of my sisters. So one was Tibetan Muslim and we are Sherpa Tibetan mixed heritage. So we started that way, and for this project, building solidarity also means, I think, so geographical community also creates lens solidarity. So one thing that we noticed, I think, so when we actually began Pomelo in like the late 2019, there wasn't many Himalayan voices based out of India representing us. So there was always an outsider from the mainland talking about Himalayas, talking about Darjeeling, talking about Kalimpong, talking about Ladakh, talking about Nepal. So we really wanted to have women talk about their stories, like have women, queer individuals talk about their own stories. Which is why for us, I think so building solidarity across a geographical community really mattered to us. Because our experiences of caste, our experiences of gender, our experiences of religion, our experiences of food for that matter, and even culture is really different from Indian India. And I wouldn't want to just put it in your stereotype saying really different, but it is sort of different. So we wanted to build solidarity across that. And also one of the reasons that we are working with a collective, like our project works with like women from across the group, is also we wanted to show intersectionality about like, okay, it's not about just upper caste people. It's not just about people from the scheduled caste community or people who are tribals who live in the Himalayas, right? There's a class, caste, religion barrier, which is why in our project we have like a Muslim woman, a Tibetan Muslim. So I think so a lot of you have heard that word for the first time together, because when we think about Tibetan, it's usually the Dalai Lama that comes. It comes women in like red robes, someone with a bead. But what about Tibetan Muslim voices who represents us? So we wanted their voices to be represented in their manner. So the way Mariam is dressed, we didn't ask her. She wanted to match her blouse with her hijab. So she did that. And I think so we really appreciated how all the women like use their voices to represent themselves and tell their stories. We did not want to edit it and cater it to a particular gaze. We wanted them to tell their story. If they say they have lived a happy life, it's like they said it. We did not say that they lived a happy life. If they say they didn't live a happy life, it's their stories. So we wanted to do that.
Sure. And you mentioned you began this collective with your sisters,
Yeah.
correct? And how many other women formed the collective?
Yeah. So we started 3. One of them passed away recent a year back, Fatima. And so right now we are a team of like 6 women, 2 from Nepal, 2 from Arunachal Pradesh, 1 from Darjeeling and 1 from Kalimpong. So like we are a team of 6 women right now.
Okay, fantastic. Raj, I have a question for you because I read in your bio that you also have a background in law, and you worked with a lot of queer, trans people of color, refugees. How did that work in some ways inform your practice now, your creative practice now around bringing people together? So my question is basically, how did your work around law and working with all these people of color, refugees, in some ways inform your practice now, working around food, bringing people together, or maybe it didn't. Just maybe if you
Well,
could talk about that.
I think in sort of my life, those sorts of practices, or the practice of cooking and bringing people around food in that way serves or has served as an antidote to the sort of advocacy work that I've done, which is heavily trauma laden and one which, where there's often like a very specific objective. But for a number of years, I've worked in asylum law representing people in the UK who are claiming asylum on the basis of their sexuality and or gender identity, sort of navigating the UK asylum system at application stage and appeal stage. Often people have experiences within their stories that meet the definition of trafficking. And there's a huge amount of trauma in that work that people have experienced, both in their country of origins, but in most of the time sort of in the receiving end within the UK, in terms of the reception of such sort of negativity and structural violence within the UK. A lot of these sorts of asylum mechanisms and legal frameworks rest on completely false narratives of what the world looks like and how it operates, and it sort of takes a view of moral superiority sort of for ex-colonial powers such as the West, and very binary views of savagery that people sort of originate from, whereas obviously the stories are a lot more complex than that. And so my work in that role has always, I've seen myself as somebody who takes a critical distance from the law, and who has worked with people to navigate a problematic legal framework to seek a specific objective, which will eventually have utility for their lives in order for them to be able to work and be received somewhat as a functioning member of society, notwithstanding all of the trauma that they've had to carry and that they will then carry on into their lives. That work does involve a lot of writing, involves a lot of taking stories and testimony, but it's always tinged with there being a purpose to it, which is to meet a certain narrative in order to get that objective met. So sort of outside of that, sort of in my writing practice and free writing practice, and sort of, I suppose, culinary practice, bringing people together, it served as an antidote. I think I sort of came to free writing a few years ago, encouraged by a friend. I didn't really even think I had it in me to be able to sort of like write poetry or prose, or just allow my brain to just sort of run free without there being this script, such as a legal script. And then when I found access to that, it just served as such an antidote to the legal framework, especially in terms of holding space for so much nuance of experience, and solidarity with others. Hopefully there was something that made sense in there.
Yeah, sure. And do you still practice law, or?
Yeah, I still, so remotely, I still work for a migrant support centre in London that serves a community in North London, and the recipients of, or the people that access their services often have precarious immigration situations. So I provide one-off advice and then try to signpost them on to lawyers who'll then take on the case. I currently am taking a break from managing cases and seeing through casework myself. But there's, it's just such a difficult situation in the UK. There's, as is the case sort of around the world, but there's a massive problem with access to legal aid, and the immigration system is just getting more and more violent in the UK. So it's just a very sad situation.
Right. And you're based in Goa now.
Yeah.
Do you find a way to split your time between London and Goa? Or
no, I mean, I'm able to just sort of work remotely in that role, sort of from Goa. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quickly before I come to you guys, I just wanted ask one more question. In terms of your food pop-ups, when did you start that? And you started that in London? And
Yeah.
I think you held a couple of events like that in Goa, correct?
Yeah, so I sort of founded this food pop-up, if you like, called Queer Moshla in London in 2019, and it was a way of kind of just serving food in healing-centered and community spaces, everything from club nights that were queer people of color focused, and other sorts of types of nights. And so that was really great. And sort of the niche that I found myself really feeling inspired in was working with artists and providing sort of like a culinary dimension that complemented that artist's work. So even if it was sort of, an artist who had a gallery opening for a sort of project they're doing, and they asked me to sort of craft the food for that, I would sort of take it really seriously and then like really enjoy the stimulation of understanding the person's work, interviewing the artist, and then really creatively trying to produce some culinary component that would complement that work in a special way. And yeah, so the last, there's a small nature reserve in Bethnal Green in London, called the Bethnal Green Nature Reserve. It's set in the Bangladeshi community in Whitechapel. And I did a couple of events there, just sort of centering queer and trans people of color, where we did some foraging and writing in that forest space, and then sort of shared a meal together. Just finding sort of sanctity in those sorts of spaces, and just sort of like reveling in the creative expression and the sense of in safety that it would foster was really nice. And so I've sought to sort of produce and facilitate more of that.
Are you gonna have such a gathering around food while you're here, or?
So my project, which is being supported by Gender Bender Taste Buds, will involve organizing some gatherings that will intend to use taste sensations as stimuli for free writing. So it'll focus on the 5 taste sensations, and it'll be queer and trans focused. And we'll just sort of see what emerges. And the hope is to collate recipes, images, and the words of those who had been brought together into a publication, just to archive our experiences, archive some of the nuance that just comes from being queer and trans and many other things at the same time in this moment in the world. So yeah.
Great. Also, feel free to jump in at any time if you guys have questions for Raj and if you have questions for them. And as I said, I'm just facilitating here. I haven't had a chance really to go through the exhibition in full detail, but I will. I just quickly browsed through your guys' installation, and as you guys said, you have worked with a lot of images now. I've been on your website and seen a lot of your writing. So what made you guys want to sort of work in other sort of media, really, like in images? And do you guys photograph yourselves, or do you work with other artists or photographers or filmmakers from the region?
So like we said before, we worked in text medium, but I also had been making my own documentary films, short documentary films. So and Nancy really wanted to sort of document the oral narratives of women, and we didn't want to work on text for this project because like Nilanjan also mentioned before, like when we are interviewing them and writing on writing an article or writing about them, so many things get lost in translation, and we just really wanted to capture their voice and the audio, the video, whatever we can get, and just put it however it is. So that's why we really wanted to. So the first idea was just to have the audio, just to record the audio. But then we thought maybe we can capture it because we are traveling and we get to meet these women. So maybe it would be better to just film them. So initially, I have just been working as a director for my short documentary films, but for this, because of low budget, like I was also taking the videos, and we hired another photographer
I can
from the.
relate to that. I work in film, so.
So we hired another photographer, Shivam Darnal, who has taken all the photographs that we have installed in the display. So he helped us out. He's also based in Darjeeling, so he became sort of our field coordinator, production support, and everything. And that's how we sort of transitioned for the audio and visual medium. Yeah.
You guys also mentioned, many of the other women in your collective, hail from different regions within the Eastern Himalayas, which kind of covers a vast sort of political, national territories and backgrounds.
Little louder.
Oh, sorry. I was asking about the many women that form your collective, and how all of you guys kind of sort of hail from different regions within the Himalayas that kind of cover varied sort of political national identities. Do you guys want to talk about how you guys come together in terms of formulating those stories or putting out these stories?
Formulating these. So I'm not getting your question, I think.
So I mean, I guess just like for example, you mentioned that you're Tibetan, your ancestor hails from Tibet. So I'm assuming, I was talking to my friend about this and how are you second generation, third generation? So there must be some level of generational trauma there. How do you guys sort of approach the writing around that? How do you approach sort of covering these stories from your ancestry and just or around topics around displacement and forced migration, which is kind of the topics that you guys are interested in writing about, right?
I think so. That's like I think so. That's like a really great question, because I think so. A lot of the writing that's currently facilitated, I think so, for the entire team is also about like identity. And again, identity becomes like a really political issue. So we are also like trying to manage like how do we also put it in a way that's also how do other people who do not experience or have those experiences understand questions of identity is something that we are really trying to do. But again, coming back to your question about like generational trauma, displacement, I think so whole my understanding of migration and how we have shaped our understanding of migration, again because two of our members are from Arunachal, right? Again, because in this whole India, like people who look like me, again they become like Northeasterns, so there's also like the danger of like me not, like our identities being at the same level where like, me saying, oh, I'm a Tibetan, it does not have to say, they look like you, they must be Tibetans as well. So we're also trying to, it's like a very murky space of like trying to balance those things out. But again, coming back to your question, I think so a lot of the writing and what Pomelo has done is due to my migration history at least, and because I think so I am like third generation Tibetan, and because the stories of women, again, because I just really want to share like a snippet. I think so what really pushed me and to do the Pomelo work, and us also, like I keep on sharing this story, is my grandmother was actually, after the Chinese occupation, I don't know how it's okay to share that word, how political I can be out here, but yeah, after the Chinese occupation of 1959, my grandmother, her parents actually left her in Tibet and they came to India with her cousin sister. So my grandmother then came once, she was stopped in the Bhutanese border, she came back. She came again, she was again stopped in near Nathula Pass by the Chinese forces, she again went back. The third time, after doing months of road construction for the Chinese government, she came again, and then finally when she came back, so there was a list formed for all the refugees who were actually coming to India, Tibetan refugees. like a list form of who came, where they are, like where did they go, because there's a Belakupi settlement as well, right, in southern India. Then there is in Odisha, big one. So then she realized, okay, her parents went to Belakupi. But because they passed away on the way because of the climatic differences of how southern India is and how Tibetan temperature is, right? So I think so this whole story of her resilience also helps us like think about how women, because of our foremothers, we stand here. Without them, we wouldn't have sat here and even done this story. So I think so, yeah, that really facilitates. And every time we are doing this project, for me personally, I think about that story and I'm like, okay, she did that. Let me take her story forward. Let me take stories of other women forward who must have come that way.
And how long has the Pomelo been in existence? For how long have you guys been writing around these stories?
So it's been running since 3 years. So we were like doing like summer issues. So we were doing like accordingly seasonal issues. So Nilanjana joined through the reading circle. So we host reading circles around like South Asian feminists from Himalayan writers. So we host that space as well. Shivangi joined again because of one of the issues. So yeah, we've been doing it on and off 3 years.
I'm curious, what kind of reach does a Pomelo have just in terms of people reading? Because it's such important work that you guys are doing, such important stories you guys are telling. So I don't know if you would have a definitive answer to that, but I'm just curious because, and also an additional question is, do you collaborate with other institutions around the region? Like, for example, the Dharamshala Film Festival does a lot of important work just in terms of supporting the artists, cultural practitioners from within the region. And if you haven't, is that something you guys would be interested in collaborating in some way?
I'll take the answer for the reach. For the other second collaboration, Himanyu and Shivangi can take it. One point of reach is because, again, it's a geographical community that's already less dense. And a lot of people wouldn't relate to our experiences of, again, gender or caste. So the reach is, again, not great. Again, within our communities, we are trying to build that reach. But again, for others, it's like really, because it's like one, you are in Himalayan region. Number two, it's like you are women and like queer individuals. So like the reach is like, so it's already like segregated, right? Because like we are doing okay, yeah. Because I think so if we had like taken maybe like just migration stories, I think so our reach should have been better. But because it's like Himalayan region specific, and the name has exploring Himalayan voices, so it might be just like another barrier that we have created. I'm not sure, like that might be something that I constantly think about.
But it's great that you guys are now part of Gender Bender, because now you guys are in Bangalore and you're doing your work now. It's fantastic.
I think just adding to that, like how I joined also, it was at that time I was looking for spaces South Asian spaces for writing, and a lot of magazines or journals that I was following, they were very specific to mainland. The mainland. So I think the Pomelo, it also because of the proximity and the similarity that we have in terms of our history, culture and language, it became very accessible for me, and that's how I joined. And like Nansel said, in terms of reach also, like when we do open calls for our issues, so anyone can submit their writings, and in the reading circles also, the people who submit or for the open calls, those who submit, they are very much specific to the Eastern Himalayas and to the region. So it's very, I think, specific in that terms. And yes, I think because we don't work like full time in this. We are all like, we have full time jobs or we have full time students. It's very difficult to run this website, and so we are also working on it in a very like going on and off. So maybe because of that, we haven't been able to find more opportunities to collaborate with more people. But definitely looking forward, I think this is just a start.
So on a lighter note, I joined for fun. Okay, so basically, I was doing my masters back in those days, right? And it was just fresh out of COVID. Once we were just getting back to normal, and then I think I was in my second year of masters, and I was loitering around in life, right? I was just going to the university, coming back to my room, and I was living alone. And I really, like, times when you're really alone, you're like, it's the entire thing about life really gets and I was like, I don't know what I'm really doing. Like, I am pursuing my masters, but then I think I should really get something doing, like really get it together. And I was like, I was always interested in reading circles. I had my bachelor's and I did my master's in literature itself. And currently, I'm working as a professor in Sikkim Manipal. I teach literature again, right? So I was very interested in reading circles, right? So I don't know how I really came across, but then I did come across the reading session that they were organizing monthly, every month, right? So I just joined in one day, and then very friendly. Naxal was so friendly. I was like, I want to join this team, right? And then I just reached out, right? And then I also and then I wrote this in the editorial letter as well, right? So I was just coming home one day, and then the sticky notes on my refrigerator wrote like it read like Pomelo reading circle 5 o'clock, right? So I joined in, and then I think about 4 to 6 months later, I was writing editorial letter for Pomelo. So that's just no, I don't think it's 6. I think it's about a year. But then I joined after 3 to 4 months, right? And then that's just how I joined in. And then I was, it's very welcoming, and then I just got inside the group, as a team, and then we started out everything. We took out our summer issue, right? It was on migration itself, the summer issue, and then now we are doing this project. So on a lighter note, that's just how my story was. I was just looking for something to do, and then I got it.
Tell us a bit more about this reading club. I think I also read on your website that one of the reading clubs is called the Sanskari Girls Reading Club. No?
Yeah, so it started
ironic,
with
the name?
no, it started actually with there's a Mumbai-based organization called One Future Collective. So I started as an ambassador. So they wanted me to open a reading circle. So which is like, okay, I can do it for the Pomelo, being a part of the Sanskari Girls Book Club. Then it started as that for like it started as that last year. So then now we've independently started doing it because they wanted to do like certain specific genre, like South Asian feminist stories. So right now we are again trying to do like more Himalayan authors, like authors from like Nepal and the Eastern Himalayas, or authors looking at those issues. So we are like trying to transition a little bit, and also trying to do it in Nepali because because a lot of people, even we don't read like Nepali literature. So yeah, I'm trying to do that as well.
Raj, back to your food pop-ups. In terms of the meals, are these orchestrated meals, or do people that are invited come together and cook together? Is anybody invited to these? How do they work?
Well, I mean, so far, I'm very sort of open, and it's very fluid, sort of how that sort of culinary practice is moving forward for various reasons. But so far, it's mainly in London been a medium for my creative expression, sort of, as I said, working collaboratively with people who are working with other sorts of mediums, and I sort of take on the culinary aspect. I really enjoy sort of putting meals together, not just in terms of sort of ingredients and flavors, but thinking about colors and textures and sort of everything, especially in natural settings when we're sat among trees and in sort of a nature reserve space. I find that very stimulating. And so I'm always sort of amazed at the way things just sort of come together in a process like that. I think this doesn't really answer your question, but just it got me thinking sort of what you were sharing and how the Pomelo sort of formed and things like that. Like for me, I think I have my sort of focusing on a diverse creative practice now is a resistance to sort of what for a long time was instilled in me, that you need sort of one direction or sort of one sort of path to go down, which sort of like defines you. I'm the child of two people that migrated from India to the UK, and there were sort of, I suppose, very strong narratives around expectation and sort of what you need to do in order to be a return on some sort of investment there that sort of is framed in capitalism. And so those sorts of expectations can feel very strong and can really hit your identity. But then, and I think sort of intersecting that like with not being neurotypical and always being sort of more inclined to having your finger in lots of different types of practices can lend itself to be frowned upon, and you're always just like you feel like you're floating around. Whereas the last couple of years I've really tried to lean into the floating around and also lean into the ability that I have to connect dots between seemingly disparate things and make my own connections and sort of seek validity in that sort of diverse practice. So sort of bringing together food with words whilst also having an advocacy practice and movement and images and other things that mean, to me, I'm feeling more confident in the links between those things, I suppose, and the validity in that, and again, like the nuance that can allow, and like anything that I do sort of creatively at the moment is inextricably linked to and underscored by my trying to understand my heritage and my history. I think I grew up in the UK in a family context where there wasn't very much communication. There was a lot of dysfunction, and more was unspoken than was spoken. And so sort of coming to India and trying to sort of understand my trajectory, my caste privilege, my parents' unionship, how that came together, different religions, different castes, different rural, city, love, marriage, dysfunction, no wedding, but no sort of answers to any of this stuff. Like a lot of my creative practice, it's not separated from that. It's all sort of inextricably linked. And I think free writing as a practice helps keep me grounded. And it's a way that feelings and words that speak to some of those themes sort of just come out, and then I sort of learn from it, and then can sort of ponder things and connect with others at the same time. Yeah,
I really relate to your practice just revolving around food, because you visited One Shanti Road. It's a near and dear space to me here in Bangalore, and people are always coming together over food, and I think one of the easiest and best ways to sort of transcend borders or differences is really through food over a shared meal. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for hosting.